Hello everyone, it's uxwbill here once again with another video featuring some interesting and unusual audio equipment. When I say the name BSR, the memory that will spring to a lot of people's minds is that of low-end, inexpensive, stacking type turntables, some of which were sold as bare units, many more of which were sold bundled with some kind of stereo system from either a department store name like Sears or JCPenney, or even a much better known name such as Panasonic, Sanyo, or any number of other systems. BSR must have sold millions of those stacking type turntables over the years, and while some people look down their noses at them, I'd say it's a fair bet that a lot of us who are into audio today got our start with a system that had a built-in BSR turntable. And while a lot of people might look down at those turntables as being record grinders, and you could do far better, you could also do far, far worse. Well, it's not well known, but BSR did manufacture, or have manufactured for them, a number of other pieces of audio equipment. I've seen CD players, equalizers, and at least one amplifier that was put together in the 1970s. Despite its low power rating, it had a very solid build quality. Well, today's video is about this. This being a BSR CD player. The model CD-316X single disc compact disc player. And this unit was manufactured in November of 1985, which would let it qualify as another early example of a compact disc player. Now this unit bears a lot of similarity internally to the couple of years newer, I believe sometime in 1987, slimline realistic player that I built into the JCPenney stereo. I strongly believe that the realistic unit, which was made in Japan, same as this one, was probably built by Funai Electric. This unit's design is more complex than the later realistic, a sign that as things were able to be cheapened and reduced in complexity, they certainly were over time. Now this was a Goodwill find, and I just saw it sitting there on the shelf. Most of the audio equipment they have over there isn't too memorable, stuff like Panasonic thruster speakers and little 3-watt speaker systems with 3-inch full-range drivers, ha 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 ha. But this thing immediately caught my eye because even though it was a little bit grubby, it definitely showed signs of having some real promise. For example, the front panel has membrane controls on it, with little micro switches underneath them. And a lot of times over the years, these things become victims of people who press the buttons way too hard and they rupture the membrane, causing it to eventually fall off and reveal the switch underneath. But as you can see here, all of these buttons are in excellent physical condition. Yet what caused me to take this thing home was actually the display. Those of you who have watched my videos for a while know that I'm a sucker for interesting displays of any kind, be they vacuum fluorescent, Burroughs Panaplex, simple LEDs, or even LCDs. And this unit would definitely qualify as having an interesting display because, as you might be able to see, it's nothing more than a calculator display that has been embedded into this player for use. Now the later realistic player actually uses a simple 4-digit LED display, another sign of cheapened construction. This CD player is also fairly unique in the fact that it has ventilation holes at the back of its case. And on the back you can see the various pieces of information such as the UL certification, the power draw specs, the model number, and the manufacturer information, UL file number, the Goodwill's price tag, all of $9.96, the manufacture date and serial number, and then the certifications for various health regulations and the location of manufacture, followed by the oh-so-common warning about risk of electric shock, do not open, followed by the analog audio outputs. On the bottom there are more vent holes still, and then there is a locking carriage thing that holds the CD player's laser mechanism in place. Early CD players very commonly feature this mechanism, and some thoughtful people actually do remember to lock it down. I don't think it's really the requirement that a lot of the early CD player manufacturers did, because I've never seen a player die because that thing wasn't locked down. But if you come across an old CD player that will do things like read the disc but has a great difficulty playing tracks or playing any track beyond track 1, turn it over and see if there's one of these in place, because the previous owner might just have been able to follow instructions and comprehend what the manufacturer had in mind, and they might have gone ahead and locked the transport back in place once again. And there, of course, on the side of the unit is another caution: risk of electric shock, do not open warning. Well, who would disobey a warning like that? I would. Whoops. Need more than one hand to do this, I think. But there you have a look at the internals. Once inside, you can see the CD mechanism, and it's built very much like the realistic player. It's even spring-floated, as you can see. At the back there, with the tray sculpted cleverly to fit around it, is a pretty decently sized little power transformer. And then over here is the main board, and unlike a modern CD player where there's one chip behind the display board and that's pretty much what does everything, in this player you can actually see the flow of bits as they go from place to place inside this thing. The entire CD audio decoding chipset, including the digital to analog converter and the servo controller, is from Sony. Back here is a Sanyo static RAM chip. And then over here is the actual digital to analog converter used in the unit. Now this is a fairly unique design in that it decodes back to analog audio one audio channel at a time. Then both are combined and released for you to hear. Up front is the system controller, which is a Hitachi 4-bit microcontroller with its own internal RAM and program ROM. So there's the insides of the unit. Here's the unit plugged in and ready to go. From the looks of things, the display is nice and bright, and I would hazard a guess that this unit probably hasn't had a whole lot of use. Now right now there is no disc loaded in the unit, even though it indicates track number 1. But if you try to press play with no disc loaded, it actually opens the tray for you to insert one, unlike a lot of other players. And unlike some early CD players, this thing has absolutely no problem playing a compact disc recordable. It won't play CDRWs, of course, but it will happily play a CDR without incident. There is also no problem with CDs that are longer than 74 minutes when it comes to reporting the time that is remaining. And here's just a little demonstration of the unit in action.
Mother in the